are now tuning in to the Going North podcast with your host, best-selling author and professional speaker and member of the John Maxwell team, Dominic Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, we're going to hear the voice of a different author sharing their gifts, stories, and expertise to help you charge forward in life. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Going North podcast, where we bring you some fabulous and extraordinary humans doing some great things on the planet, today is no different because today we have a certified global life and love coach, the first ever on this podcast, who is also a certified clinical trauma and addictions professional, as well as a #1 best-selling author, the host of her own podcast, and Alexa's daily brief called Lessons in Life and Love and Educational. She's also an educational speaker, as well as a licensed mental health counselor for close to 20 years in Palm Beach County, Florida. So this wonderful lady right here, she's got life in the palm of her hands. In addition to that, she's also a life and dating coach for the docuseries called Radical Dating, Finding Lasting Love Over 40. And the most fabulous thing about that is the fact that her client is now happily married. She also specializes in those who have had past or childhood or relationship trauma and offers VIP 101 coaching, as well as online virtual group programs for both singles and couples at her wonderful website, or at least one of her wonderful websites, lifeandlovetrainingacademy.com. And she also has an app too, Lessons in Life and Love, on the go. So this woman is a Jill of all trades, but her name's not Jill. It's the one and only Riana Milne. How are you today, ma'am?
Hi, Dom. Wow, what a nice introduction. Love that. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
Woohoo. Yes, indeed. It's a lot indeed. You've accomplished a lot, and the good thing is it's not even all of it.
That's true. Uh-huh.
Well, for those who have been living under 10 rocks, mind filling us in on some gaps where it may have missed how you came to be a love and relationship coach.
Yeah, I took the traditional route of going to school for my master's. I have a triple master's in applied clinical and counseling psychology, and opened up my private practice in the New Jersey area, a covered township called Therapy by the Sea. And in the meantime, while I was working that, I was also working in schools. So I'm also a SAC counselor, which stands for Student Assistance Counselor, and ended up working at every grade level for that, kindergarten all the way through college. And I was a counselor that handled the kids that were emotionally upset or oppositional defiant or ADHD, or they were bullying, or I had the kids that were bullied. So kids that were dealing with trauma on an ongoing basis. So now over the years, I deal specifically with those that have had childhood and love trauma and how it's impacting them today in life and love, which the study shows is close to 90% of us has 1 to 3 items on the childhood trauma checklist, which I developed a few years ago to see if, everyday people had some of these events going on. And most people say, nah, I don't really have trauma, and you'll be shocked. And most people say, yep, I'm one of the 90%. And they say the other 10% just are either sociopath or not emotionally aware, so that's where the other 10% lie. It's interesting.
Oh, yes, interesting indeed. Interesting indeed. And you overcame a lot to get to that point. So I'm guessing that's what kind of helped you to get the triple masters and become a coach, especially in life and dating?
In 2009 and 10, I went to RCI, Relationship Coaching Institute. I really saw that the whole healthcare industry was going to change for us in the medical field at that time. And I really love the coaching model. It's highly supportive. It's more programs and individual sessions. I put a lot of research and education into my programs. My cornerstone books are the #1 bestseller, Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. And then the sister book about the mindset for success is called Live Beyond Your Dreams, From Fear and Doubt to Personal Trauma, from personal power, purpose, and success. So those are sold in Barnes and Noble store, and of course also on Amazon. And they're 5-star rated, and Love went to a #1 bestseller in several categories on Amazon. But then I also have a 150-page notebook where the clients answer certain worksheets and assessments, give them back to me, and then from how they answer is how I coach them. So it's very interactive, very personalized, and it really, really helps. And I know you like the people's personal stories. So I had a toxic relationship, and my husband came out as what I call the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality type. And I made that up because of the whole correlation to that movie and the play. Dr. Jekyll was really well respected in the neighborhood and well known and well liked and charming and good looking. And then he had a whole hidden personality type that nobody knew about until his worlds explode. So in the movie, Dr. Jekyll, raped and ravished women and killed them at night. By day, everybody loved him. So I had a Jekyll and Hyde that, got caught with pornography as a principal at his school, instantly lost his job, huge community scandal, married to me, who's an interfaith minister and a marriage and family therapist. Of course, not only did it blow up my life, my marriage, my dream for my future, but also my business. So I stood up for myself and went for an annulment and as my own attorney. And at the end, the court judge says, "Ms. Milne, in 32 years of being a family court judge, I've only granted one annulment. They're very hard to get, And I said, "Yes, I've heard this." And he slams the gavel and he goes, "Yours is the second. Congratulations."
Sweet.
So, yeah, and I filed the complaint within 24 hours of this happening because I just knew I had to become free of this. And then I had to figure out, why am I attracting this type of person? And on his way out, my ex says, "I don't know why I ruin everything I love." And I said, "I'm about to figure it out. I'm going to figure out why, and I'll let you know." Because childhood trauma like this was not talked about. It wasn't out there. There's things on attachment theories, basic psychology. There was so much more that I had to know. And when I got the answers, he was a 9 out of 10 traumas and a severity level of an 8, 9, or 10.
Wow.
So that's what I look at, the 10 traumas, and then what is the severity level, and then that's how it comes out. So anyone that's sociopathic, has a secret life, does what they want without the love, the concern for anyone else, very impulsive. Well, I can go over the sociopathic checklist as well if you want to know what that is. But these are, were his demons, but he had severe childhood trauma. So that also led me to understand and forgive, because I knew how devastating his childhood was. It led to these strategies, these emotional triggers, his coping strategies that were dysfunctional, trying to use humor a lot and sarcasm to cover up his insecurities. So yeah, it was really a fascinating study. And that's when I said, I'm going to specialize in this because people need to know what this is. So I say, Dom, I'm on a mad mission to change the way the world loves. So you are helping in that mission by getting the word out there.
Woohoo!
So I appreciate that.
And looking fabulous too while you're doing it, which
Thank
is
you.
even more awesome. Yes, indeed. I'm like, man, this woman's beautiful. Then it's like, oh, she was a model. Well, that explains it.
Yeah, that was my model for 33 years. And my first business at 26 was I opened up my model and talent school and agency with my first month's rent, and really, really loved that business. I've been called a dream maker. So no matter what job I've done, I'm involved with people's dreams. And I did tell you I'm an interfaith minister. So I've been marrying people since 1997. So I'm the officiant investing in their dreams, giving them that beautiful, warm wedding ceremony that they dream of. and I'm a writer, so it's all custom written. They're really quite beautiful. So that's what I've been doing my whole life, taking people's goals and dreams and teaching them the mindset for success. My model's from Erie, PA, very small and industrial type town, ended up on soap operas, sitcoms, billboards, brochures, TV commercials. One became a rockette dancer. She was in dance. A couple of singers. My own daughter sings on 3 multi-platinum CDs. So she was with a top singer when she was 19, Alexi. So, that's what I do. I take their dreams and I teach them the mindset to go for what they desire. And it's the same with people that come to me with past trauma, but they usually come to me with a high anxiety that's usually ongoing, bouts of depression, fear-based negative thinking. And this holds them up in business as well. So I do a lot of business coaching, which falls under my life umbrella. Life coaching is looking at everything: family, friends, income, your career. Do you love it? If you don't love it, what do you want to do? And let's get your mindset around that and start that for you. So we look at everything in life. And then when they feel really about where they are, now it's time to go out and date. That's for my singles. And then my couples usually come to me with round and round conflict. It's the same story over and over again, the same way they handle it. And they're on the brink of divorce and they can't figure out, how to get that love back, that spark from the beginning. And there's a lot of childhood trauma that keeps coming up and everyone's taking it personally and angry about it. So we have work to do, and also new ways of communication for them is important.
Oh yeah, you're definitely right about that. And I guess communication in a way begins with knowledge. And you mentioned the 10 traumas as well. So mind going
Mm-hmm.
deeper into those?
Yeah, that's really important for the listeners to hear because, again, the research shows most people have 1 to 3 out of the 10 in the checklist, even though most of us would say, and I even did too, I'm reading this, it's like, well, this doesn't apply to me. It does apply to him, And then it's like, well, wait a minute, maybe I do have this one. I do have that one. I do have this one. So I have 3. And when you know what they are, and then when we do the work around them, we solve these, we heal them, because trauma stays stored in the brain and the body, and the unconscious is in charge until you change to be totally consciously aware. And that's the mindset work that I do. So it's best to get a paper and pen. And Dom, you might want to do this little test yourself just for fun. And you make 3 columns. The first column you put is me. The second one you put is your partner, so anybody you might have struggled with in your past. And the third one you put parents. And as we go through the list, you could put mom, dad, or both if you knew that they had that while they were growing up. Because all the studies show childhood trauma goes through generations, and at least 3 generations, if not more. But they definitely are confirming it back to 3 generations. Okay, so here we go. This, again, is not about blame or shame. We're not looking to blame mom or dad because they usually do the best that they know how. And we're not there to shame you as well. This is about, let's look at this as a factual situation. And if indeed you have them, then this will be the basis of some of your struggle in life, love, or business. Okay, so first of all, when you were a child, did you have a parent with any addictions? Now, most people know drug and alcohol, but as an addictions counselor, there's many more. So I'll name 11 of them. So there's drugs, alcohol, sex, meaning a chronic cheater, porn, gambling, hoarding, spending, overeating, gaming, TV watching, workaholism. So that could be any of those addictions in your parents. Second one is verbal abuse. Now, we all know what yelling and screaming is if we watch them yell and fight, as we were growing up. However, they could have been yelling at you. Other forms of verbal abuse that I would see in a lot of my students were parents never giving them compliments, never hearing the words, I love you, never saying, what a great kid you are, or hearing instead, you'll amount to no good. Your ideas don't matter. You're so dumb. Are you ever going to get this right? Any kind of verbal put downs is a form of verbal abuse. Third, emotional abuse or neglect. And we all know the severe forms of that. But even in some of the studies, they say, the single mom, which I was for a long period of time, if the kids let themselves in from school at 3:00 and you had a 5:00 job, they were on their own for an hour and a half, that brings some forms of anxiety. So that they put under neglect, even though we were working hard to support them. Okay, the next one, physical abuse, so any kind of beating. molestation, or rape, and those could have happened inside or outside of the home. Next is abandonment. This is a big category for many people, and there's two types I name. One is fault and no fault abandonment. So a no fault abandonment would be if a parent dies early, if they go off to serve at war and the child has this anxiety, is my parent going to be okay, or they're going to come home. And the one that I had was my dad worked a lot outside of the home. And we didn't know it, but he was like James Bond. He was FBI and CIA, a very handsome, dashing man. And I remember as a little girl saying, "When's daddy coming home?" And my mom would go, "Well, I don't know." And she'd be home alone raising 5 kids. I was the fourth one. And of course, as a woman, I look back, I'd be pissed too if I was a wife, didn't know where my husband was, or when he was coming home to help support the kids. There was always fighting around money. So, this was one of mine. And when he was home, he was really loving and nurturing, and my mom was more difficult. She was the one with verbal. We didn't hear "great job." We didn't get compliments. We didn't hear "I love you." So that was one of mine as well. So that's one type of abandonment. The other one is a fault abandonment. So a parent never choosing to be in your life, a parent who divorces and is very inconsistent in seeing their kids, or are late, or when they are together, they're emotionally checked out. They're with their new partner, they're checking out watching football, where you're just sitting in your room on your computer. There's no real connection. So that's a form of abandonment. Next one is trauma 6. If you were adopted, part of foster care, or needed to go live in another home because your family didn't have a consistent home. So that could have been even with grandma, aunts or uncles, family, friends. Trauma number 7 is the most common. This one is personal trauma. So this is remembering not feeling good enough. So you could have been born with a medical issue. You could have had asthma in school and not chosen for the sports team, or labeled ADHD or something else in school. You could have been an overweight child, or like me, I was skinny and gawky. Finally, by the age of 12, I won a modeling scholarship, and to be skinny and gawky was cool. So it's like, okay, great. And that really helped me with my self-esteem, thank God. And that you had to write an essay, and I pour my heart out into it. So I've been writing since I've been a young kid. Just anytime you just felt like you didn't fit in with the cool kids, you didn't feel chosen. Now, that one actually spurs a lot of people to huge success. So I work with a lot of successful women in business, but struggle in love and can't figure out why. Well, they negotiated getting their ego fed, and I mean healthy, compliments and self-esteem by growing, being smart in school. So they had love and accolades from their teachers. Maybe they didn't get them at home. And then their sense of accomplishment comes from the business world. But then they struggle in love. So we handle that. The next one is sibling trauma. Your sibling could have been born with medical issues, which commanded more of time from mom and dad. Or most likely, they were perceived as the golden child. So they might have been more attractive. They might have been more intelligent. They might have been the sports hero of the family. Something where they got more of mom's, dad's attention, time, accolades than you. They also could have bullied you. So that's sibling trauma. Number 9 has 2 categories. There's actually more categories, but when I'm on an interview, I talk about 10 of them because there's too many. But number 9, I had to bring the second one into this column. The first is family trauma. If a parent was incarcerated, if you moved a lot, like our military families move every 2 to 4 years, and the kids have to go to new schools every time. They're always the new kid. If you lost your home by mortgage crises, if you grew up in a dangerous neighborhood, or you remember having a lot of lack in your home, there's always struggle around money. Those are some family traumas. And I think I mentioned it, maybe not incarceration of a parent too. And then the second category there is community trauma, because it's becoming so huge, which is our mass shootings, our school shootings, and loss of our homes and neighborhoods, our whole communities by hurricanes, floods, fires, mudslides. We're hearing more and more of this all over our world, and it's become very devastating, not only for adults, but for our little people trying to handle, my house is gone, my friend died in a flood, it's very, very traumatizing for a little person. And then the last one, number 10, is mental health issues in mom or dad. Now, I'm part of the baby boomer generation, so our parents didn't really go to counselors, but you could maybe diagnose this with this explanation. The two most difficult is bipolar and borderline personality types. So borderline is fast trigger anger. You never knew when they were going to be angry, but when they were good, they were great. But when they're bad, they're horrid. And they would get mad at the littlest things that nobody else would get mad at. So the children are always walking on eggshells, a high anxiety home. And the other one, bipolar, is manic and depressive. So manic can come out as a gambling spree, a sex spree, spending spree, or eating binge. Depression can come out as extreme fatigue, checking out emotionally, or even anger. So those are the 10 traumas. Did you have any, Dom?
Oh man, that's a whole decade right there. That's
Uh-huh. Yeah. So when I have to give the explanations, because then people are like, oh my gosh, yeah, I did have that. Like me, I realized my dad's gone all the time. That is a form of abandonment. I was teased and bullied in school, because I was so skinny and had glasses. I was a little bit of nerdy looking. And then my mom never gave me compliments. So it's like, yeah, okay, I'm seeing this. So the big question is, okay, how does that impact you as an adult, right?
right,
Okay.
right indeed.
So I will go into some of those. So where does jealousy and control come from, which are not good in relationships? That comes mostly from trauma number 7, usually mixed in with trauma number 2. So again, trauma number 7 is not feeling good enough. So even though your partner could say, I love you, and try and show you all these ways of love, you're jealous. You still don't believe it. You're always testing them, subconsciously or unconsciously testing them. You don't feel you deserve that kind of love. So that could be jealousy and control. If there's someone with you, let's say you're a high power executive, you may choose someone that's not as powerful as you, but then they're trying to be jealous and control you and pull you away or sabotage you, making you late for a business meeting, things like that. So maybe even lose your job so you can be at home with them. So there's all different ways this can play out. Codependent relationships come from abandonment issues. You hang on too tight to your partner. Lying, let me give you an example of why lying occurs. Lying could be that person that they lie almost about everything. You're like, why do you have to lie about that? Well, lying was a survival tool for them as a kid. So let's say we have the little boy comes home with an F on his test. He goes, oh my God, my father sees this, I'm going to be beat. He turns it into an A, he gets away with it. Well, he's now reinforced that lying works. It saves him from the punishment. So then lying becomes a way of life. It becomes normalized. That's where lying comes from. When the women have a lot of is people pleasing. I have a lot of couples coming to me. The woman's really burnt out. She goes, I do everything for my husband and my kids. And she really overdoes. And she goes, and they do nothing for me. So this is a woman usually coming from, let me give an example. Let's say she has an alcoholic mother who is major controlling and demanding, hungover in the morning. So she'd overdo this little girl, getting her siblings ready for school, doing their lunches, out to the bus stop, kind of like a mini mom, helping to take care of the household. So she learned to get love and peace by overdoing and pleasing her mother. Now, guys are people pleasers too. I have a male client that over pleases his partner, and his partner, the woman, treats him like crap.
Oh,
But that's how the father treated him. This is how he knew to get love. So we were working on breaking all that dynamic. And the thing is with this stuff, Dom, there is no prejudice. I work with younger, from like 16 and up, older, my oldest client, 73, man, woman, straight, and LGBTQ population, because this happens to everyone. So it's fascinating work.
oh yeah, oh yes, indeed. There's like regular life coaching, what a lot of people do, but what you do, it's almost like you're a black belt martial arts master with the stuff.
Yeah, the balancing a lot of hats here. I got the psychotherapy, the life coach that propels you forward into a life that you want, the trauma professional that really dissects. We have to do the trauma work first, because the whole time people are working with me, we are always watching that the emotional triggers aren't coming back out, that they're not going back into this fearful place on the dark side where they're negative. So the mindset to change from dark, negative, fear-based thinking. It takes a while. We're like reprogramming your mindset to be happy, loving, joyful, peaceful. And it's so ironic because once you live your life this way, if you come across like a really high anxiety, negative person, you just can't take it to be in their company. You don't want to be around them anymore. It's just too difficult because you're so used to having this blissful state of being. And it's not that challenges don't come up, they do. But when they do, we call it from Buddhism. Again, there's a lot of faith in here, faith based philosophies. And in Buddhism, they call our existence being in the earth school. So we are here to learn many lessons. So when a challenge comes up, it's not like, oh, poor me, or I'm the victim. It's like, okay, this is happening. How can I look at this? What 1 to 2 ways can I think outside of the box to help this issue? It's happening for a reason. And then we, put a different story or a different mindset around it, come up with different strategies, different tools to propel yourself through the conflict or the issue or the problem. But we don't freak out about it. We stay very rational and calm and work our ways through it.
Yep, that's
It's
right.
quite interesting.
Just make sure you have a big fat plexiglass page for the in-person ones, right?
Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, I mean, it's a very trusting and loving relationship. And sometimes, I feel like I reparent for people that did not have loving, nurturing parents. And it becomes really like a family. People stay on my email list for years, 19, 17 years. People I worked with doing a lot of this philosophy, my models and actors are on my Facebook page. I have this one woman who I worked with when she was 6 in Erie, PA, in my model and talent company. She was an adorable, very successful child actress who now has her own children. And she's still on my Facebook page. So, these models, I taught them the mindset for success. And it's nice to see over the years that whatever they have chosen to do, that they're still using the core concepts, that are explained in this program and in my Live book. So it's really great to see years later the success factor. I mean, even Alexi, my own daughter, she speaks around the world. She's a personal transformation coach with her partner and husband, Preston. And, she uses a lot of philosophies she learned that I taught her when she was a little girl. Now she's teaching this to many, many others. So it's great to see it. It really is.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. One heck of a legacy, too, for you. Probably got to feel extra good about that. The fact that a lot of the stuff that you're teaching, it stands the test of time, and other folks are actually taking it and running with it.
Yeah, I do teach a lot of parenting too, because again, I worked with many children in the school system all the way through. And, I saw their pain. Of course, I was the one that had to make many of the DIFES calls, which is Division of Youth and Family Services, if I knew these little adorable people were being abused in any way. And then I'd have to do a lot of family education. So I did a lot of parental teaching. I also taught the teachers how to do some positive behavioral techniques within their classroom. So I do a lot of parenting talks as well, because with the coaching, my clients that are parents and come to me, they usually have some broken relationships with their kids. By the time they're reaching out to getting help, there's like, okay, I know, my kids don't really like me, or they don't respect me, or they don't talk to me. They're angry at me because they grew up with a lot of conflict in the house. So rightfully so, these kids are angry and they don't know how to process their anger. They're not emotionally intelligent enough at these young years to know how to handle it. So I teach the parents what to do, and then they go and do that, and the whole dynamic changes with the kids. It's beautiful to see.
That's right. The whole butterfly transformation.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
indeed.
Yeah.
Ew. Awesome indeed. Well, since we know what the toxic looks like, mind filling in some folks on what does a healthy relationship look like?
Sure. I mean, section 4 of the Love book goes into this quite a bit for many pages, but I'll give you a few top tips. Both partners should live the concept of you and me against the world. That means you protect your relationship against all others. You always make your partner feel safe and cherished and number one in your life. Not your mother, not your father, not your best friend, and not your kids. And people say, not my kids. And it's like, if you don't put your partner first, and you're always putting the kids first and running them around to all their sports activities, you don't have time to get out and romance with each other, guess what? The parents aren't going to stay together. There's going to be divorce in the family. So yes, you put your partner first to make sure you have a happy marriage, and therefore your children will be happy too. Now, with that, you want to balance an equilateral triangle between you, me, and us, meaning you each have fulfilling individual lives. So that could be your fitness time, yoga class, your career, having quality friendships, but you also make sure that you have your us time equal balanced. So very important that you create enough time for your partner. A third tip is be what you want to attract. So singles, if you want an emotionally healthy, evolved partner, make sure you have every area in your life together first before dating. If you want someone financially secure, don't be in debt yourself, right? We're talking the law of attraction here. If you want somebody, that's the best example I like to give, financial, because people are looking for someone that has their life together, right? Well, do you in all areas? Do you have a great relationship with your kids? You want to make sure that is in place before you bring a partner into that mix, right? So you don't want any cheap drama. You got to clean all that up. Next is your top 5 to 6 requirements are met. So you can trust them, they're addiction free, they're financially secure. An example of a requirement, it's kind of like a definite yes. So if you're a woman, let's say, who's 30 years old and you definitely want a child, then you definitely want to date people a man that or a woman that only wants a child too, right? So this is a requirement for you to feel happy. You want that role of a mother. So you have to make sure you don't care about the chemistry. Chemistry can take you down dark roads sometimes the wrong way. Yes, you need to be attracted, but I call chemistry the icing on the cake. If you don't have the cake, the icing just melts. It's no good. So you have to have the substance of the person, and you have to make sure your requirements are met. They're good people of high character. So there's more, but you also the last one I'll share is you have a shared vision of your future, both together and individually, and they support you. So whatever your career is, they're supportive of that. They know where you want to go. They're on board with that. And you have this vision together, and you know where you want to go with that as well. So there's just a few tips. Oh, and by the way, Dom, I know you're a faith-based man, but the studies show the best, long-lasting, and happiest relationships are faith-based spiritually. So there's spiritual concepts, and people live in a spiritual way, and they make the best relationships. So if you're out there looking, become spiritual in some faith that you really relate to, and make sure you find a faith-based partner.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed, and avoid cheap drama.
Yes, at all costs. It only gets worse with time, trust me.
If you ever get the t-shirts, that should be one of the slogans: avoid cheap drama.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. So is there something that you cannot do?
Well, this is my magic right here. This is what I love to do, and it's enough. Trust me, I'm a busy coach, but I love doing what I do. I see people from around the globe. I have a woman that graduated from Lebanon, and her childhood trauma was, Riana, I didn't know if I was going to wake up alive the next day because bombs were going off every night when we go to sleep. We didn't know if we were going to be bombed that night. So I talk about community trauma, right? And then she had a lot of fears around holding on to a guy too tight. The jealousy, the control, the abandonment issues were very huge for her. And we got her beyond that. So it could be any type of trauma
That's right.
that people have endured.
That's right. The mental magic indeed.
hmm And it's interesting that the people that don't get help, they tend to repeat what I call same person, different face. Toxic relationship after toxic relationship after another one. They say, what am I doing wrong? And I can't figure it out. That's what it is. This is what we get to the bottom of. And then those that are severe, like my ex, they're become sociopaths and they use people for pleasure or profit. That's the best way for me to describe in simple terms what a sociopath is. A psychopath is a sociopath who kills. Okay. And then a big buzzword, people come to me, oh, my husband's a narcissist or my girlfriend's a narcissist. I said, well, they could be a sociopath. It used to be 1 in 25 are sociopath. Now they're saying like 5 in 25 is sociopathic. So if you're out there dating, you really want to know what you're looking for. And I can name some of the traits of the sociopath because some people are like, I think my partner's a sociopath. What's involved with that? So there's the jealous and control. They isolate their partner from family and friends. They expect perfection in their mate. Initially they love how they look, but then they start nitpicking or having you dress, from alluring to more conservative because they don't want other people looking at you. They're definitely impulsive. They're prone to several addictions, alcohol mixed with something else. They're ruthless and emotionless. There's no remorse for their action. These people refuse to apologize. And you keep thinking, why don't they see what they've done wrong? Why don't they say they're sorry? They won't do it. Okay, that's the sociopath. They're moody. They can be difficult and demanding. They lack conscious awareness. They just do what they want. It's a very selfish way of being. They crave money, status, and power, and they use others to get it. They tend to be alone or they don't have real good friends, or if they do, they're also toxic and subservient or addicted as well. There's a poor work history. They don't follow through with their word. They're usually very high sex driven, promiscuous sexually, where sex equals power to them. They probably had a lot of early behavioral problems, fast marriages to wealthy people. They are con artists and they're master manipulators. So, if you are with someone like that, reach out to me today. Do not wait because these people become very dangerous. And if your listeners have not watched the series Dirty John, that's a beautiful depiction of what happens in this relationships. Unfortunately, that lady was almost murdered as well as her daughter from this guy. And it's a real story. And, you could see that the sociopath goes out really beautiful, kind people, usually faith-based people, people who are nurturers or helpers. They will go after counselors, nurses, teachers, people in the helping profession who just are kind, forgiving people. So that's why you have to be careful. Or listeners, if you know someone who's a sociopath, please share the love. Make sure they hear this podcast and make sure they reach out for help and contact me.
That's right. Rihanna's the butter to your bread. Make it happen.
Uh-huh. You're funny.
Yes, indeed.
To make a joke out of a serious topic, huh, Dom? It is. I do worry about, people. I lost what propelled me into this work too was my dear friend and college roommate at Penn State. We roomed together for 3 years and I was 1 year ahead of her. And she was with a very toxic guy. I tried to get her out of that relationship numerous times. By the time I left the campus, she was broken up. She obviously got back with him. I was rolling through Penn State one day and say, hey, I'd love to see you. And she was acting very strange. She was inside his music store. And I said, walk me out to the car. But she had a broken leg. She goes, well, my leg. And I said, take me out to the car. I want to talk to you. And I said, what is up with you? And she goes, well, I was on camera. He's watching every word that I said. And I said, you got to get the hell out of this. And I said, I'll come down. I'll help you move. She goes, well, I'm going to go back home. And supposedly she had a plan to get out. And God forbid she did end up murdered. So, at that point, I swore I would never tolerate a toxic relationship or a toxic person in my life, and to give back in Corinne's name and spirit. I help people that have come from abusive relationships, which we call love trauma. I call love trauma. People that have stuck it out in marriage because it was the right thing to do, and hoping, the kids had a solid home to grow up in, and they have been emotionally, physically, financially abused for years, verbally abused, emotional. There's all kinds of abuses there. And they're just like burnout. They're like, I don't even know the first step about dating. How do I do that? What's a good person look like? How do I have an emotionally healthy, evolved, and conscious partner and love relationship? How do we do that? Because nobody taught us that in schools. I would have thought that I even would have learned that in my master's program, but no, they didn't teach it there either. So much for formal education. It's all my research. I went into many, many books from many experts about what is a good relationship look like. I think I have like over 200 sources that I quote in my Love Beyond Your Dreams book, which is all based on research and getting the answers that I wanted, that I know so many of my clients wanted over the years.
No wonder I invited you on this show. You're one heck of a voracious reader. Got 200 sources.
Yeah, I am.
And that was just
For
for book
sure.
number 2.
Yes.
And you got a third one coming out in the future, right?
No, I've written 7 books, and I have number 8 coming out, which will be about childhood trauma and healing from that. I'm about 125 pages in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's almost done. It's finding the time to sit with a clear head and be able to write. But I also, again, I'm always about finding resources to cut into my book. So it's, learning from other authors. I cite other authors too. So yeah, I want it to be very thorough, but that's what I'm working on now.
Oh, wow. So I'm guessing the other 4 are like not on Amazon at all?
Well, the first one was my model and talent manual. I wrote at 26 years old, 250 pages with illustrations. So that was my first book. The second one was my master's thesis. It had 128 professional sources and ended up being over 200 pages. And that was a community program I did for adolescents out of Atlantic City area called Teen Vision. And it was how to teach risky kids to be successful. Again, kids of trauma. Everything I've done, I look back, it's like I've been working with people with trauma my whole life. So, kids from toxic households or one-parent households who were struggling, and they loved it. And I did pre and post tests, and it really showed what techniques I use, which I call positive parenting models, help them raise their grades, get more popular at school, feel more socially accepted, raise their confidence and their self-esteem. We did a project called Feed the Hungry, where we did a talent show, because of course I grew up kind of in the talent industry. So they raised money with their talent show and gave it to, we bought turkeys for the homeless shelter around Thanksgiving. So they did themselves with that. And then I did the Watch Me book, The Bold New Personal Mindset for Success, that came out in 2006. And then I rewrote that into Live Beyond Your Dreams. So did I miss one or two? I think that's all of them. I think. Oh, my notebooks. My notebooks are 150 pages, one for singles, one for couples. So those were another manual that I had to write for my programs, for my courses.
Oh, there we go. Sort of full course meal indeed. That's what I'm talking about. Right. No wonder I didn't know about the other ones. All right.
Yeah, they weren't for public use. Live and Love were the first ones I marketed really to Barnes and Noble stores. And I got in there, and I've done a lot of speaking there about how an independent author can get their books in their bookstore, because it's only half of 1% that Barnes and Noble will pick up to put into their store when you're independently published. By the Sea Book Publishing is my company. And the reason I did that is because I wanted my books to be a give back. I give partial proceeds for 2 different charities. One is Alexi's Waterwells in Tanzania, Africa. And the other one is I give back to a shelter for those with domestic abuse, women, children, and men of domestic abuse. So if I put it with a publisher, I would get like a quarter a book, right? So instead, I decided to keep all rights and try to give money away to worthy causes when people buy the books.
Ah, beautiful indeed. Beautiful indeed. Out of curiosity, since you're an interfaith minister, do you have one faith that you follow yourself?
Yeah, I really am into science of mind. There's a lot of books from Ernest Holmes on that one. I grew up Episcopalian. Unfortunately, I was bullied at church. So that was not a really great experience for me. But that's why I call myself interfaith. I love the writings of Buddhism and Eastern philosophy. There's a lot of great concepts in all the higher books. The Torah has some great lessons, the Bible has great lessons. So the universal messages are what is taught at, I go to a place called Center for Spiritual Living. You might have heard of Reverend Michael Beckwith. He has
Oh yeah.
Agape Church out in LA where Alexi and Preston go. And he started CSL, the Center for Spiritual Living. So I think there's like 500 of them now throughout the country. And I go to the one in Florida. So yeah, it's really great spiritual uplifting lessons. I also love the messages of Joel Osteen. I do like his messages as well.
Oh yeah, definitely easy to take in.
Yeah. And when somebody's new to faith based healing and philosophies, like a lot of my clients are, what's gentle enough that they can hear and relate to. And I think Joel's messages is very much like that. It's easy for people to understand. It's not a lot of Bible jargon where people are like, well, what does that mean? It can be a little difficult to understand and interpret. So he does a beautiful job of interpreting the messages. So of course, I like Wayne Dyer, the Dalai Lama, Marianne Williamson of the Course of Miracles. I started studying the Course of Miracles in my young 20s. So I read a lot of the spiritual leaders. Osho. So there's a lot of them out there. I just picked up a new book from Araya as well called The Invitation.
Oh yeah, that's right. And you wonderful folks listening, I invite you to pick up multiple copies of both of Rihanna's books. Heck, if you want to go way back and get a used copy of Watch Me, go ahead and grab that too while you're at it. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And more importantly, sign up for our programs too. Well, one question I'd like to ask every guest since you mentioned young 20s is if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but this time in the current year of 2019 with all of your amassed knowledge and experience, what
Mm-hmm.
advice would you give to yourself?
I would have gone through my program years ago. I wish it existed. It would have saved me 200,000 that my first husband ripped off from my mother. That took me 16 years to pay her back. If you're young, get this information before you choose a marriage partner. If you're divorced, get this information before you remarry. That's the only thing I would change. I loved all my businesses. I love working with my clients. I adore my children, and they're amazing young women doing beautiful things in the world themselves. So that would be the only thing I wish was different. That piece. I couldn't really change how I was brought up. My parents did the best they knew how. Years later, I asked too my mom, like, why don't we hear the words "I love you"? She goes, "Well, I didn't hear those words. We grew up in the Depression. It was hard times. We weren't emotional back then." So, you know, they have their reasons. So, I really wanted to be a mom. I was a very loving and affectionate mom. So that helps heal too. But I love working with kids, in the schools or with parents so they can be better parents for our kids of the world. The world is hurting, and whatever we can do to help educate and change some of these dynamics, that's my mission, changing the way the world loves. And I mean that not only in romantic relationships, but in family and friendships and any other way you can love one another. That is my mission.
That's right. A fabulous mission indeed. A fabulous mission indeed. And not just the modeling either. That's what I'm talking about. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that was my other life.
That's right. Many lives in one life. Who would have thought? Alrighty, I believe there's also a special offer for those who made it all the way to the end. So go ahead and tell our listeners about your
Yes.
free gifts.
I come bearing gifts. I like to give a lot of educational gifts. So go to my website, rianamilne.com. It's just my name. And at the very top, you'll see free love tests. So if you're singles, couples, or you want to do the childhood trauma checklist, That is uploaded and ready to go. My site is going through a little bit of editing, but it's ready to go. There are free book chapter downloads. I think you get the first 60 pages of both Live and Love Beyond Your Dreams. You can get those. And there's also an opportunity to meet with me for a life and love transformation discovery session, all on the homepage. Tons of articles, videos. My Facebook page is Coach Riana Milne. You can get all the announcements of all the summits I'm on. I always give free links out so you can keep up with the education. And I also have an ebook that goes a little bit further into the childhood trauma. It's about 14 pages, I guess. And that is at havethelove-you-deserve.com. Havethelove-you-deserve.com. So plenty of gifts.
That's right. That's right. Indeed. Christmas came early, y'all. That's right. Who needs Santa Claus when you got Riana Milne on the show? That's what I'm talking about.
Aw.
Yes, indeed. No belly either.
Nope.
That's right. Nope, no white beard, no belly. That's right. Well, there you have it, folks. Go on out there, get the wonderful free ebook on the topic. She dropped a lot of gems to put around your necklace of wisdom. Buy some copies of the books. Check out her wonderful stuff. Riana, it was a pleasure having you on. Pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much, Don. Thank you. Thank you so much for asking me to be a part of it.
Woohoo!
I hope I could help answer some questions for some of your people today.
How's it going, you super special, awesome human? Since you made it to the end of this episode, it looks like you really enjoyed yourself. Since you enjoyed this episode, be sure to share it with at least 3 people in your network and tell them what you really liked about this episode.